Alright guys, so in this video, we are going to be taking a look at the overexposure shots that I have between the Pocket 6K and the Sony a7S III. I got a couple of requests on showing this in post, so you can kind of see how I was able to recover highlights on both cameras. Now, I did shoot two more clips, kind of like extra ones, just to really verify, pretty much to verify the results that I received the first time around. So I shot a couple of overexposures, and that's what we're going to be looking at right now. On the left side is the Blackmagic RAW. On the right side, this is an H.264 10-bit all intra. Now, I tried both on all of the shoots. Well, majority of the shoots, I did all intra and HS. So this one right here is all intra on the Sony a7S III. Alright, and on the left side is Blackmagic RAW, and this right here is 6 stops overexposure on both cameras. Like I said previously, looking at the back of the screen while I was recording these clips, the Pocket 6K was a goner. I was like, yeah, dude, there's no way. Just look at this. This is what I saw on the back of the screen here. I mean, the Pocket 6K was out, and this is not Rec 709. That's actually flat. Blackmagic design film. It's already jacked all the way up. So let me go ahead and try to recover the highlights. Granted, we're recovering highlights. We don't necessarily care about anything else. We're just trying to see how much we can recover from both of these cameras at high overexposures. And by the way, if you have a better way on trying to get more highlights while you guys are watching this, let me know in the comments below, because to be honest, I'm not gonna pretend I'm like a really good colorist, guys. I just pretty much know enough to get by. For the Blackmagic RAW, it's a little bit easier because it has RAW, right? So usually what I do is I drop down the ISO to about 100, which is the lowest it can go. And what I'm gonna do is click highlight recovery. Okay, so that's that. And what I'm gonna do next is actually just drop down the exposure. Okay, so I'm gonna drop down exposure about right there, just ballparking it. And then what I'm going to do here in the color wheels is I'm going to drop the highlights here. Alright, so there you go. And if you really want, you can go to HDR tab. Let's try it. Let's go ahead and get the specs out. And as you can see, it's not really moving except for the highlights. Okay, so we're covering a little bit of highlights there. Alright, and then what I'm going to do is actually just push it up. Alright, so it doesn't look as kind of flat. And if you look here, and I'm going to control F, okay? This is pretty much as much highlights I can recover within 6 stops overexposure from the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K. You see our forehead, that's gone. There's no more detail there. So this is 6 stops overexposure. Go ahead and just drag the shadow down a little bit, alright? So, and then we'll go bring it back up. Control F, and you can see that's where that's crunchiness. It looks like it's like an unsharp mask. Somebody was asking about that, like, why are you getting that halo unsharp mask effect? Well, that's because whenever you're stretching that contrast, it's making it a little bit sharper, look a little bit like you applied some unsharp mask there. So that's where I was getting that. So I'm gonna press H here. We're gonna bring up the Sony a7S III, and here is we're gonna start working on the a7S III. Obviously, RAW versus 10-bit. You know what I mean? So let's go ahead and do some stuff for the Sony a7S III. Okay, so working on the Sony a7S III, since it is not RAW, it's going to be a little bit tricky on kind of recovering highlights, and this is kind of where I need you guys to help a little bit. So what we're going to do is go back to the color wheel, which we did with the Pocket 6K as well. I'm going to bring down the highlights, and as you can see, it's doing a pretty good job of recovering with the highlights up there. So the detail back up there. And then what I'm going to do is drop down the shadows, similar to the Pocket 6K. And then I'm going to drop this up. And this is, again, this is where that halo effect comes from. Whenever I'm stretching the crap out of this contrast here. And then what I'm going to try to do is go to my log wheels. And I'm going to try and see if I can get some highlights back from here. But as you can see, it's just contracting down. It's not necessarily recovering anymore. So I'm going to go ahead and zero that out. And like I said, guys, if you have a way, I have these files for you guys to download. If you have any other way on how to recover these highlights. But as far as I can get, this is pretty much as high as I can go with the Sony a7S III. Alright, so I'm going to go right here. And I'm going to go ahead and stretch that. I mean, Control F and bring this back up. That's it's just the information's just not there. So that's as far as we can go, and that's this kind of like the similar result that I ended up with in my previous video. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on to the next clip. Now, this clip right here, I tried to test out the dynamic range between these two cameras. I had the light meter, and I metered her face, my daughter's face, on both of these cameras, and that's what we set the exposure for. We set the exposure for the indoors. I wanted to see, and I wanted to blow out the outside. This is midday, around 11:30 p.m., so the sun was pretty freaking high. I set the exposure with a light meter and to pretty much expose my daughter's face. Same here, same thing, and then just let the background go. From looking at it, again in the waveform, that Pocket 6K is gone. This is much lower, but that is also clipped. Alright, so let's go reset everything, which I think I already did reset everything. So now, what we're going to do is the same exact thing. We have RAW, so I'll drop the ISO, highlight recovery, and then, you know, we will go to the color wheels and drop the highlights down. Okay, and we'll just leave it there for now, and then we'll go to the color wheels again, and then drop the shadows down. Obviously, it's not exposing my daughter's face anymore, but it's okay. We're just trying to see how much we can play around here, and this is pretty much what you're working with right here. Okay, so drop it down again, get some shadows, Control F, so you can see that's the clip. All right, see a little bit of tree branch right here, see the rooftops, and now we're gonna go to the Sony a7S III. This time around, it's an H.265 HS 4K, which is, in my opinion, a lot better. Even though the All Intra records more bit rates, I was getting more quality and detail out of the H.265 HS 4K. All right, so this is this clip, and then what we're gonna do is same exact thing. Drop the highlights down. Was able to get a couple there, and then again, I'm gonna try and go to the HDR tab, and I'm gonna try and see if I can. Nope. So it's not working as well for that, and it's not working as well for that. Okay, so sometimes you can get lucky and you can get some. It's not working at all with the HDR stuff. So we're gonna go back here. I'm gonna go to our log wheels, and we're gonna try and see if nope, doing this doesn't really do anything in the log wheels. And then what we're gonna do next is just drop that to see if we can get anything. No, it's just moving the entire image. So I'm just kind of playing around with it here, and then the highlights is already negative 100. So now what we're gonna do is just spread the contrast again by just going like this, and then kind of bring it up to like 896. All right, so compared to the Pocket 6K, you can see the tree branch over here, it's gone. Over here you can see this little chimney looking thing. Over here you can barely see it. Okay, so again, the claimed dynamic range on the Sony a7S III is 15 stops. On paper, the claimed dynamic range on the Pocket 6K is 13 stops. Now, here's the deal. What if the claimed 15 stops is only for ProRes RAW? And yes, I am going to get ProRes RAW tomorrow. I did get the Ninja V to test out. So I am going to be doing overexposure tests, shadow recovery, dynamic range, low light, all those tests again, but with the Ninja V ProRes RAW. Because maybe this is an internal recorder limitation. Because right now, the Pocket 6K looks like it has more DR than the Sony a7S III, even though Blackmagic is only claiming 13 stops. Sony a7S III and the YouTubers, the usual suspects, claim 15 stops. Moving on to the last clip. This is the last clip, I promise. Sorry, this video is running long. Same thing. Blew out the highlights. Took my ND filter out. Same exact settings. ISO 400 on a Blackmagic. ISO 640 on the Sony a7S III HS 4K. Okay, here we go. Again, Pocket 6K looks more clipped. So let's do the same exact thing in this case. So we're gonna go to the heck's going on here? I think it's frozen. It is frozen. So I downloaded, this is beta 3 of DaVinci Resolve, so I'm gonna Control Z. So let's go ahead here. Let's go to clip. I'm gonna go to Gen 5 and highlight recovery, and then drop the ISO, and then I'm gonna go same exact way. The wheels. Drop that. bring it back, drop the shadows down. Okay, and then bring it back up. Control F. That's how much it recovered. Pretty disgusting. That is sick. So, man, okay, that's insane. All right, so let's go to the Sony A7S III. Again, we don't have as much control since it doesn't have RAW, and that's why we're gonna get ProRes RAW. Maybe that'll help us out. Here you go. Drop highlights down. Let me go ahead and use my control panel. It's really using the mouse. All right, and let's bring the highlights up. Okay. There you go. We're gonna go that. Pretty good, right? And I think this was 4 stops over on both. So that's before and after. I mean, that's the Blackmagic, and this is the H.264, the Sony A7S III. So that being said, verdict-wise, internally, 4 stops over exposure is probably where you'll want to be maxed at with the Sony A7S III internally. Now, I can't speak about ProRes RAW just yet because I'm not going to get it until tomorrow. So obviously, let's wait for that. But as it stands right now, 4 stops on the Sony A7S III, I think, is so usable. The dynamic range between these two cameras is a little bit questionable on the Sony A7S III internally. Okay, that whole 15 stops, I'm seeing it over and over again with the tests and the clips I have continuously. That 15 I'm not seeing. All right, so here's the 6 stops over exposure, which is gone. I wouldn't even go 6 stops over exposure on the Pocket 6K. That's the safe bet is 4 or 5 on the 6K, and then Sony A7S III I would go about 4 over, and that's pretty much it. All right, guys, and I'm sorry that took a long time, but somebody wanted to see how I was processing the overexposure in post. I don't usually use LUTs whenever I'm doing overexposure because the LUTs actually clip a lot of highlights already. So I try not to do that. I try to do lift gamut gain when doing overexposure recovery in post-production. All right, so like always, thank you all for all your support. Thank you for all the comments. Thank you for all the feedback, and you guys are actually helping me get better at this. So yeah, if you have any comments or anything like that, or if you have any ideas or tips, go ahead and leave it in the comments below, and I'll see you guys later.